Good evening, Aegean 600 race fans. I'm Dobbs Davis with the Day 3 report from this year's 5th edition of this great race. This race continues to be a challenge, and so I've got a couple of stories that I want to share with you tonight. First of all, when you open up the tracker, this is what you get. I'm going to step you through what I do is first close this leaderboard that comes up by default. I then also go to toggle wind data and pick the windy. For some reason or another, predict wind doesn't seem to work this time. And then I have a wind overlay. I have the boats on the track. I also make sure that the boats are toggled to show their tracks from where they've been, because that's an interesting part of our story. Okay, now what's happened? Well, this is the race course now. We're not far away from sunset here in the Aegean, and as you can see by the green, for those that are new to us, green indicates the color scale down at the bottom of this screen shows you a color coding for magnitude of wind speed. So green is about 15 to 20 knots, maybe 12 to 15 knots, somewhere in that range. And it's quite pleasant sailing in that amount of wind speed. But here's the thing. When we zoom in, we'll see the details and what happens, of course. First of all, big picture, the fleet has gotten down at the bottom of the course. This is the island of Kossos. Everybody eventually got through the gate at Santorini. It was quite a light air gate there, so took some much longer than others. Last night and early this morning, this was mostly kind of a reaching downwind-ish race, a leg down to Kossos. As you can see by the tracks, most people were able to fetch almost all the way down to this point off of Crete. Some had higher angles than others. Some jibed across. This is interesting tracks here. Showing them jibing all the way across the racetrack and then coming back down in. But the good news is that everybody's gotten around. The real part of the story and what is establishing their positions on the race course now is what's happened in the succeeding hours during early this morning and throughout the day as they've punched through these zones of no wind. So as you can imagine, the islands act as shields. So with this wind direction coming from roughly northwest, west-northwest, you would anticipate not having any wind behind the islands, and it's better. It's not so bad. We've seen terrible leads behind these islands before. It really depends on what the wind velocity is and what its direction is. With the wind cranked around to the west here, I actually think the lees are a little less pronounced than they typically would be with let's say more normal Meltemi direction of north or northwest. But nonetheless, it was interesting to see how some boats punched through here, did a great job. Others wiggled around. You can see by these tracks in their history that, in fact, we'll go in. When you go past this zoom in, by the way, you lose the overlay of wind. But nonetheless, it's okay, because what we're going to focus on now are the tracks. Now, I'm hoping that in the YouTube reproduction of my telling this story and on this screen, you're able to see these icons. They scale them in size to the boat size, but point being that back here, and this was at 7 o'clock this morning, the fastest monohulls had actually punched through, but I want to show you something interesting, which was what happened when the leaders, who were the let's see, who was it? Volvo 70. Yes, that's right. Daguet, which is not a Volvo 70. It's a Carkeek 54. Very fast boat. They've been fighting for the outright lead with Aeolus, the Volvo 70. So let's watch them. These are the two lead boats here. they come in to Cassos at, this is about 2 o'clock this morning. So they get in here around midnight, start to get light air. The boxes still come up. Even when you look back in time using the scroll bar at the bottom of the screen, you're still getting some data, performance data, for the boats. When you move your cursor over their icon, you still get what they were doing in speed and heading at that time. So at 2 o'clock this morning, Aeolus, the Volvo Open 70, is going 9.7 knots in this direction. The French team on Daguet 5, this is, as I said, a 54-foot Cartique design, is going faster. So it's interesting, and you'll say, well, how is a larger boat not able to beat a smaller boat? And there's a whole variety of reasons for that. But some of this we'll see pronounced as what happens when they get in these lees. So they punch through the first minor lee here. It looks like Aeolus went very close to the island, probably got stuck in here. Daguet did a wide turn, probably didn't slow down, and that's how they got around him. But let's see what happens a little bit further. And both of them, here they get to the first lee of Carpathos, and 4.7 knots. That says 12.1 knots. I have a feeling that may not be correct, but both of them will start to slow down here. This is just about an hour or so later, and then clearly here they both stop. That's at 2:53 this morning. Then they get going again, and then they stop again. So these lees are not one big monolithic thing. They come and go. They're related to the terrain that's up to windward of them. The wind direction, again, is this way. So the challenge is getting through these things, and the boats that do best at that are the ones that have vaulted out in the lead. Now look at that. Just about stopped, and this was 5 o'clock this morning, so just before dawn. 1.5 knots of boat speed on the French boat and 0.6 knots on the Volvo 70. Now if we go to just the next time sked, look what happened. The French team just punched out. They got some little puff of wind, even as close as they were to the Volvo 70. They're still stuck in the water here, stuck behind that lee, and the French are off and running, 13 knots of boat speed. So, and we could do this through a variety of boats here. There are definitely through this gate of lees behind these islands, there were, in my analysis, some pretty clear winners and losers in this part of the race course. It was really interesting to look at, and this was at 6 o'clock this morning. I'm going to scroll out there and then just look at one or two others. I mean, look at that. That Cartique 54, they must have had exactly the right sail conditions. 15 to 18 knots of wind. They're going at, or even, perhaps even, it looks like they're going at wind speed, 19.9 knots of boat speed. I mean, this is amazing. This is definitely the highest speeds that we've seen amongst this fleet in this year's race. Meanwhile, their closest rivals are still stuck behind that lee. I mean, this must be heartbreaking for them to have watched this. But that's what happens. I mean, the lees of wind are sort of vortices, you know. There's wind that spalls in behind these islands. Some get it, some don't. And there's different ways. Some go in close, some go out wide. I mean, look at these guys here. They went way out wide. The largest multi-hull in the race, the Allegra 86-foot catamaran, they try to get away from this by going way out wide. So there's no clear single strategy. Some boats go out, some boats go in. These guys here, they went in. They did just fine. This boat, this is remarkable actually. The French boat, Chenapin and Care 40, definitely the smallest of the boats amongst the leaders, and yet they're able to pick their way through all these small lees and all these small holes in the breeze, along with the best of the fastest boats. So hats off to them. They've really done a great job. I'm going to go forward just a little bit more and then pick up another, what I think is another success story, and that's here. Chris Hemmons and his team are on a Cookson 40. They had a really tough night at Milos on Sunday night. Last night they did a lot better. They finally started to catch up to the fleet on the long leg down to Cassos. This is a canting keel Cookson 50. So in any breeze at all and off the wind, they cant the keel off and they just go flying. But then when the breeze goes light, they put the keel vertical, and the boat's actually pretty narrow for its length, and they figured out a way to get through these various lees and then get ahead of this group. They were well behind this group 24 hours ago, but by clever sailing, they got up and actually about this point, maybe just a little bit further, they were sitting there as the second elapsed time monohull on the race course. So zeros to heroes. Really a great job. I wanted to, so telling that story was important, just how to get through the lees. This is the island of Rhodes. It too normally has this enormous lee behind this. This year, actually not so much. I mean, south of this point in Limnos, everybody was going pretty well. The lee really didn't kick in until the northern half of this island. And again, that's, I think, a function of the wind direction being further west than it normally is in Meltemi. So the other aspect of what I wanted to talk about was how are they, we can see how they're doing on the chart. We can see how they're doing in actual time on the racetrack. What about corrected time? Everybody's being rated. Now, what does that mean? So I'm going to give a brief tutorial on what that means. For the monohulls, they're being rated in either IRC or ORC. And let me just actually go forward to real time here. So we'll go back to real time. We're going to go back to putting the wind flags on so we're not distracted. Okay, so what does this mean? What are the ratings? Well, in the IRC system, this is Class 1, IRC Class 1, including some of the boats we've just talked about. There's Daggett and their rating, 1.446. They are not the fastest rated boat. That is the Volvo 70. Carbonita is a Neo 570, also a pretty fast boat. That is the actually that's not the fastest rated boat either. They have this in alphabetic order. I guess you can click on that and you can get it in. Yeah, there you go. You can get it in order of speed rating. So these ratings, TCC means time correction coefficient, and this factor here is multiplied by the elapsed time on the race course to arrive at a corrected time. So boats that sail slow have low TCC ratings. Boats that are rated faster have higher TCC ratings. And if you multiply, so if you think about it, it's kind of a balance. Faster boats are faster, their elapsed times are lower, but their TCCs are higher, and reverse mathematical relationship for boats that are slower ratings, but longer time on the race course, and in the end, it should equal out. Now, I just did, and then I'll also show you, these are the ratings in the ORC system. It is a different system, but it uses the same concept. These ratings are here in this column, time on time. I think in this system we call it TCF, time correction factor. It's the same thing as TCC. But what's clever about this is there is a chart here that gives you the rated differences in, if we have columns up here, in how many minutes on the race course have elapsed, and you can, while you're sailing, you can actually get an idea of how you're doing in corrected time by punching these buttons over here on the left. Those buttons will set what's called a scratch boat. So if I'm sailing on Varuna, I click that button, and this shows me the numbers in red are the amount of time that I owe all these slower rated boats, and in black is the amount of time that these faster rated boats owe me as a function of how much time have I been in the race course. So I want you to focus on this column, this rightmost column, because what I've done is enter in the number of minutes for 48 hours. When I looked at this analysis this afternoon, it was about 48 hours into the race. And after 48 hours of sailing, because I knew Varuna and Carbonita were very close on the race course, I said, well, who's beating who in corrected time? And in being really close like that, they still, though, because of their ratings, have a delta in who owes who. So if I use Varuna as the base here, the Carbonita, 48 hours into the race, owes the Varuna 1 hour and 20 minutes, actually almost 1 hour and almost 21 minutes. Carbonita owes them 1 hour and almost 21 minutes of corrected time. So I will drag over a window. Here we go. This is a snapshot of where they were on the tracker this afternoon, about 48 hours into the race. And this is Lindos here. You can see that they're separated by, 2 miles, 3 miles? They're going, let's say 3 miles. Carbonita was going 7.6 knots, so they're only about half an hour separated in actual time, which at this point in the race, 48 hours into the race, means that that Varuna is actually beating them in corrected time using ORC scoring. I did that same calculation for their IRC ratings, and the same relationship held that my calculations were that Carbonita owed Varuna an hour and actually just about an hour and 45 minutes. So, and yet you see that the tracker gives them on the leaderboard the crowns that they're leading in their leaderboard. And so I wanted to point this out because the tracker uses a different calculation. Their method of trying to calculate who's in front in the leaderboard is based on how fast will that boat get to the finish line at their current rate of speed, and what is that separation with the boats around them, and then that calculation is made by their rating. So it's a little bit more convoluted calculation, and one that's based on their projected finish time, whereas my calculation is, well, how are they doing on elapsed time right now after they've been sailing? So different way to look at it, but it does actually come up with different results. Anyway, I wanted to point that out so that those who may scratch their heads at that will know. One thing I don't like personally about that, about the YB method, is that it's making the assumption that they're going the same rate of speed and therefore trying to calculate when they'll finish based on that rate of speed. And we've seen throughout this race that the rates of speed vary from 0 to, what's Daggett doing up there now, 10.3 knots, but we saw them down here at the southern end of Rhodes going almost 20 knots. So, that calculation and that assumption, I think you have to take with a grain of salt. Anyway, I think what's ahead for tonight is going to be very interesting. These guys, as you can see, are now on the last half of the race course. I'll zoom out just to give us a view of what that looks like. So, yeah, everybody, I think right about here is the halfway point. You can see by this big pronounced blue zone, it is light. This is the lee behind Rhodes. It kind of ebbs and flows in size and intensity. There is still some good green patches. I think these teams will be able to get through the night and through that lee, but let's look at what happens a little later. In fact, if you believe this, it looks like it gets a little better, a little less lee. We go to later, very, very early this morning after midnight. even stronger wind, actually. So this is an opportunity, if these boats down here can get into this channel here, and that wind is indeed quite strong. I mean, when you start seeing oranges, that's 25 knots of wind. That's a lot. But the good news is they're reaching, so they go super fast. So this might be an opportunity for these guys to sort of catch up. And where are we? 7:30 tomorrow morning. Starts to get light. So tomorrow, so through the night, they're going to have, I think they're going to have great sailing, at least if we believe this wind forecast. However, tomorrow could be a tough day. These guys that have already gone around the north end of Rhodes, they're going to be going upwind, then reaching, then going upwind again. But as you can see by the wind forecast up in this part of the course, it looks like light air ahead. So definitely no course records this year. We already knew that from the first night. But I want to leave you with all of that. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you all enjoy these shows, and I thank you for coming to listen. And I look forward to giving you a report for tomorrow. So for now, on behalf of the AEGEAN 600, this is Dobbs Davis signing off.